Great. Okay, this works now. Thank you. That's why we do a check at the start. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. COMP1531, welcome to, for many of you, what's still a fairly early course in your degree. I know there's a ton of people who kind of in second year. I think a lot of you are in second year, right? Because you did 1511 last year, and now you're coming into 1531. There's also a few students we have in like their fourth or fifth year that are, finishing the course, finishing their degree basically, and they're doing this course. So very quick introduction. My name is Hayden. I am a casual academic at UNSW. I work full-time in industry at the moment, in the financial technology space. So I do a lot with programming and money. That doesn't mean that I'm a finance person. It means that I'm a software person who works in the money space. And I teach COMP1531, which means I have the pleasure of talking to all of you throughout the term, which is super exciting. It's one of my favorite courses to teach. And that's kind of what we're going to get into now, which is kind of like, why should this course be important to you? Because there's a lot of courses at uni. Some of them are exciting. Some of them are boring. I'll let you decide what this one is. That's going to be up to you. But why do I think this course is important to you? Well, there's lots of things that we're going to learn about in this course that you'll see, obviously, as we go. And some of them are kind of technical. Some of them are a bit more fluffy and like, soft skills. But at its core, and I'll keep coming back to this idea, our job in COMP1531 is to turn you from solo programmers to collaborative software engineers. And what I mean by that is that many of you who have come to this course, like many of you have mainly done COMP1511 or you've done COMP1521. And they're two excellent courses that CSE runs. And it's incredible to think that for many of you a year ago, you weren't doing any programming, right? But what we're trying to do in this course is broaden the concept of what being a software engineer in our industry is and turn it from like this idea that what computing means to some of you right now is opening a terminal or an editor and writing some code and running it, and actually say, you know what, quite often when we write code, it exists in these big projects with complicated steps and iterations throughout. You're doing it with teams. You need to work together. You need to plan together, because that's how most software actually works out in the real world, right? And it's one of the perils of the education system, I think, in general, is that a lot of what you do at uni is you just kind of get a blank slate, you sit down by yourself and you write code. And in reality, when you go get a job in the workforce, which many but not all of you will do, that's not what happens. And that's just kind of a problem inherent to education. COMP1531 isn't perfect by that stretch. Like, education by its very nature will have its limitations, but we're going to do our best to try and be the very first step on a very long journey you'll have to feeling like you are a capable software engineer who can work in teams. So I think it's a very exciting time and it's a very exciting course. How this fits into your program is pretty straightforward. As you know, you do COMP1511 and then you kind of get sent off in a few different directions, but I don't need to talk through this diagram, and it's probably outdated because this stuff changes all the time. The key thing I want to kind of emphasize here, though, is that contrary to the logic the course codes imply, where it goes COMP1511, COMP1521, COMP1531 is not a logical extension of COMP1521, and I think I just want to make that clear because it sounds like it might be, right? COMP1511, C programming, COMP1521, you get even deeper into, software architecture, like a lower level. COMP1531's kind of on the opposite side. We're taking you up to a higher level language, specifically Python, and yeah, it's good fun. So, let's talk about what's actually in the course specifically. Well, before that, assume knowledge. So we will assume that you've done 1511. So we'll assume that you're a competent C programmer, that you understand basic data types, that you understand what abstraction is, and that you have a very you have an understanding that testing is important, right? You've probably written an assert in C before. What is in this course? So contrary to 1511, which I'm just using as because for many of you it's like one of the main courses you've done, it's quite similar in that it's an introductory course, but one thing that's different is we cover quite a wide array of topics. So rather than spending kind of like many weeks focusing on just C, we have to kind of take it up a step and focus on about 5 different things. And we do so in a kind of interlaced fashion. And those 5 things are Python, the programming language. So this part will feel very much like 1511. We show you programming, we get you practicing programming. That's probably about maybe a third of the course roughly of your time in Headspace. Then we have web and HTTP, which is a whole topic around, how do you actually build applications that work through the web browser, and like what even is programming on web servers, web browsers, and all of this. It's very introductory, but the reason we teach this is because of how pivotal and how common web has become in everything you do, right? 10, 15 years ago, most of you wouldn't have ended up working in web, but the reality is that probably half of you, if you go and get a job, will do that. We're going to learn about Git, which if you haven't heard of it before, probably is just a random 3-letter word. But basically, we're going to learn about version control and collaborative coding. And what I mean by that is that how have you coded to date? Maybe you've written code on Vlab and you've emailed it to yourself or something like that. And what Git allows us to do, generally, is to keep track of the history of our code and to easily share our code with other people. Sorry, I didn't mute on the second one. My apologies. So someone in the chat says, I do think there should be a Teams channel for this course though. I will chat about that soon, but we are using Teams for your groups, but we don't need a Teams channel for the course because we already have the Ed forum and there's already a CSE sock run Discord. So, it's up to you. Or Facebook. There's tons of things. We don't want to overwhelm you. The 4th thing we're going to learn about is the software development lifecycle. And that is essentially more of the theoretical aspect of, I don't know if this makes sense. It's like, when you think about building a building, like you're all kind of engineers in some way. When you think about building a building compared to software, you think, I probably need to plan it. I probably need to talk to some people. Maybe I'll make some like blueprints. And then I got to order all the stuff, and then I got to build the thing, and then I got to make sure it works, and then I got to maintain it, and then when it gets knocked down, I have to deconstruct it, right? That concept that you can probably picture with something more tangible, like say civil engineering, we're going to be learning about the software approach to that. So essentially, like what is a project, and how do you manage software development over its life cycle? Life cycle means from birth to death, right? And then the 5th part is project management and teamwork. We want to help you figure out how to actually run teams, like run meetings, talk to each other, communicate with each other, etc. Miguel asks, are we going to do our own thing for our team projects? No. So that's a great question. There is a major project in this course, which we'll talk about. It is defined what you do. So it's like quite prescriptive. I think that's good and bad. The bad part about that is that when we have a prescriptive project, we do our own thing for team projects. Sorry, maybe I misunderstood your question. Sure. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the project. But the short story is that we set up a Microsoft Teams for you because that is the only place that your tutors will ever look at when it comes to settling disputes. Right, so you can use whatever you'd like to communicate. That's up to you. But if your group ever kind of cascades into chaos and then someone's like, so-and-so didn't do any work, your tutor is not going to go through your Facebook chats to figure out what's going on. They'll only go through the Teams. But we'll talk about that later. And Catherine's asked, what do we use Discord for? Well, we don't use it in this course at all. And the main thing I've shared about it on WebCMS3 is that Discord is a chat run by CSESOC. So CSESOC are your student-led, student-run organization that do a whole bunch of stuff for you. They're not staff members of UNSW per se, and they just have a community Discord where lots of students like to interact. So, yeah. One thing I will just flag, because it's kind of important, we've had this feedback in the past. If you go to the lectures page, you'll see that there are lots of interlacing topics in this course, and that's just kind of a it's just a different way of kind of going about it. So some of you might be like, oh, this feels chaotic because I got, different kind of lectures, but for us to be able to teach as much as we want to, we can't kind of do 2 weeks of Python, 2 weeks of Git. It just would mean that it would take you 6 weeks to be able to start anything. So we kind of need to just do bit by bit as we go, and that's totally fine. Okay, quick things on assessment. Go read the course outline if you haven't. It has a lot of detail in it, but the basic principle is that you have a 30% exam. Your major project is worth 50% across the term, and then you have a class mark that is worth 20%. Now that class mark is detailed pretty well on the course outline on WebCMS3. If you go down to assessments and you look at the class mark section, it basically outlines this for you. You can go read this, and I would encourage you to, but the idea is quite simple. You have 24 marks that you can get in your class mark. There are 24 total marks to get. And you can get 16 marks from your labs, and you can get 8 marks from your tutes. We only take a maximum of 20 though. So like when we do your class mark, like if you get 18 out of 20, then your mark was 18 out of 20. If you get 20 out of 20, then your mark will be 20 out of 20. If you get 24 out of 20, your mark will be 20 out of 20, right? So there's like bonus marks built into your class mark, basically. So there's 24 marks you can get, even though it's out of 20. So what this means is that when you get your labs and your tute marks, to get full marks in the class mark, maybe you only need to get 14 marks in your labs and 6 marks in your tutes, or maybe 16 marks in your lab and 4 marks in your tutes, or 14 or 12 marks in your labs and 8 marks in your tutes. So I just want to create that understanding now, is that there's these kinds of bonus marks. You have a little bit of flexibility. Now, how you get these marks for labs is very straightforward. It's just like other courses where you have a lab, you do the exercises, you submit it, your tutor marks it the next week, and they give you a mark out of 2 for that lab. So the labs are a little bit bigger in this course, but they're also worth a little bit more. And yep, that's pretty much it on labs. And then tutorials are a bit more complicated, where you are getting marks for your attendance and participation, and if you're online, you can also get some extra marks for having your webcam on, right? So these 8 tutorial marks come from you attending your tutorial, which your tutor takes note of. It comes from you having your webcam on if it's online. It doesn't matter if you're in person. And it comes from participating in that tutorial. That means maybe asking questions. That means answering questions. You can do it on the chat if you want to. You don't have to like speak out loud. We're perfectly fine with you doing it on the chat. In fact, it's a lot easier in a way to kind of run a tutorial. If you don't have a webcam, you can use your phone. That's really hard. Pretty much all of us have phones. I'm recording myself right now on the phone. So you can just put your phone up. It's pretty easy. We use Zoom, so it's very straightforward. Now, there's the inevitable questions about marks to do with tutorials. So if you don't put your webcam on, then you can still get 20 out of 20 for the class mark, right? That's easy. If you do put your webcam on, what that does is that means that you don't have to do as much to make you. Maybe you don't have to do a lab question that you found really hard. Maybe you don't have to participate in another tutorial. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe you can skip a tutorial. You know what I mean? If you get enough marks in the labs and the tutes. So the webcam's totally up to you. You can do it. You don't have to. Last year, in 20T3, we had about 90% of students, I'd say maybe 80 to 90, put their webcam on. And most of them seem to like it because once everyone has their webcams on, shoots are a lot more fun. So, and no, webcam's not on for lab. We don't mind about the lab. It's just the shoot. The reason we want your webcams on for the shoots, right? It's not because I hate you. I don't hate you. It's because our tutorials are group activities where it relies on participation and engagement, right? And I've been a student online. I've been a teacher online. And when you actually run a class where you can see each other, students can see students, tutors can see students, everything is better. That's why we do it. It's not a requirement. You can get full marks in the course without it, but we do want to incentivize it. So if you do have your webcam on in your tutes, it's a mark you don't have to get elsewhere. People have been asking about the hurdle for the exam. So there is no hurdle for the exam. The reason for that's pretty simple. All exams now are take-home exams, so our ability to tell if you're cheating is diminished. And the whole point of exams is to create an environment where we can tell if you're cheating, right? That's about it. It's there to make sure if you cheated throughout the term that, we can make sure it's really you. Yep. And in terms of the labs, you pretty much get 1.5 out of 2 if you do all of the non-challenge activities, right? So there's these challenge, hard, whatever you want to call them, activities in every lab. Maybe there's like 4 questions for normal and then 2 challenge questions. So you get 1.5 out of 2 if you don't do the challenges. Now, I just want to flag this once because someone, like 5 people are going to tell me about it. You're going to say, why don't I get 2 out of 2 for the labs if I do everything, and then I get bonus marks if I do the challenge exercises, right? And what I'd say to you is, if the way the marking is structured, you do actually get like extra marks because you don't need 2 out of 2 in every lab to get full class mark, right? Like let's say you get 8 out of 8 for your tutorial. Now you only need 12 of the 16 marks. So you could do no challenge exercises in the course and just attend your tutorials and participate and stuff, and you'll get full marks. So even though like it might not look like it's a bonus mark, you really don't have to do it if you don't want to. The way we structure this is to allow you to just choose what matters to you. Do you want to do challenge exercises? Do you want to participate in the tutorial? If anyone, like, I mean this, if anyone is struggling with a webcam, just use your phone. I join shoots all the time on my phone. You can join on your phone and your laptop. It's pretty straightforward, so just try that out. I'm just reading. I saw a couple of questions in the chat before. You can't get full marks in a shoot without a webcam, no, but I mean, the webcam's a small part of it. You could easily get full class marks without it, so it doesn't really matter. But I'll try and give you the advice I always give people. It's like, just try and remember that it's all choices. Yeah, it is my phone. I was gonna buy a webcam because I have this other camera that's really crappy that I bought when I was like 16, and then I was like, you guys deserve better. So I went to buy a camera, and then I said, why am I gonna buy a webcam when I have a phone that has a camera on it? Jaden asked, do labs work the same way as COMP1511, where there's a due date in the week where you can submit it, or do we get marked on what we submit during the lab time slot? No, it's a lot like COMP1511, where you have a date that you submit it, and then it gets marked by your tutor the following week in the lab. And last question on this, because I want to move on. Feng Yu says, for in-person shoot, do we get the webcam mark automatically? So it's a little bit complicated with in-person classes, but what I'd basically say is that the webcam component is obviously not a part of in-person classes, but your tutor will have a slightly higher participation expectations on you because you're in person, and it's a lot easier to engage and actually like contribute in person. So don't worry too much about that. But the webcam's not a component of the in-person shoots, but we've kind of designed it to not be a big deal at all. Go read this, please, though. I can't tell you all of it now. it would take longer to talk about, but please just go and read it. If you have any questions, you can post on the forum. The way that labs are due in this course is that labs are due on the Monday following the week we give them. And what that means is week 1 lab is due Monday morning of week 2. Week 2 lab is due Monday morning of week 3. It used to be due on a Sunday night, but CSE is trying to move us away from weekend due dates, so now things are due on the Monday morning following. This is written in your labs. It's all written down. Everything I'm telling you is already written down, and we've explained it. It's just I know that I'm one of those people too. I don't like to read stuff. So just a quick summary on the course structurally. We have 2 2-hour lectures a week. You know that. There's a schedule listed up here. I pretty much will update these links shortly before the lecture. The actual lectures themselves are listed here. So after the lectures, I upload them to YouTube and Echo 360, and then I put them here. You can get the slides. You can also use the slide deck thing I'm using here if you'd like. Students complain to me, they're like, I don't like your whole scroll left, right, up and down thing. I don't know what to say to that. I find it very useful because it helps kind of group lecture topics together and then explore things in a certain way. So I'm sorry if you don't like it. Someone asked, how do we find out our tutorials and labs? Well, you go to the timetable page. Anything under timetable is about scheduling. Anything under coursework is about content. The tutorials and labs timetable shows you your tutorial code. Like if you're in T13A, which you can find on your UNSW timetable, it tells you the time, it tells you who your tutor and lab assist are, it tells you the location of it. If it's online, it's a Zoom call. Some of the Zoom calls are still getting processed, so I think there's 4 Zoom calls here that are like, we're still trying to get links for, but they'll be up before your tutorial. Don't worry, just go check 5 minutes before. The second lecture is not Tuesday. Oh, sorry. That should say Tuesday. I don't know why it says Wednesday. I got the time right. I think I forgot to update the day. Yep. We'll get to labs. So tutorials are pretty simple. You turn up, you follow instructions, you participate. Nothing there is too crazy. In terms of labs, you can find the lab content in the coursework section, because here it shows you your tutorials and your labs. So if you click on tutorials, you can see tutorial 1. If you click on lab, you can see lab 1 here. And all of the instructions are in the labs. It tells you how to submit it. Sadly, we don't have time in lecture to like go through every single detail, but this is a link to the lab questions, and this is how you submit it. It just tells you what to do. It's all inside this tutorials and lab sections. I'll fix up any link issues pretty quick. So then so CSXin, I don't know how to pronounce your name, has asked about how do you know which team you're in? We'll get to that in a sec. So your major project is a 4 to 5 person 1 to 10, like weeks 1 to 10 project. So you're basically going to be working on an assignment with a group of people from now until the end of term. We're going to be talking about this tomorrow afternoon. If we run out of time, I'll put together a little bonus video for you. Week 1 is always a little bit of a stretch, but we'll see how we go. And if you want to find major project information, I know that there's a link on WebCMS3 that doesn't help too much, but you can actually see which project you're in by going to this page on the sidebar, clicking on this, and then you'll typically see a group. Now, I'm part of all of your groups, so I can't really I can't really show you what it would look like for you, but basically we created, I have to go back quite a few pages. Oh God. We created all of your groups. Might have to go back a lot. 40. Yeah. So when you go to your GitLab homepage, you will see something like this. It'll be like COMP1531 21T1 groups and then some name, and it will typically be your tutorial name. And if you click on that, this is your group repo. You can actually see who's in your group by going to members here. That'll show you. The other thing is that we've added you to a Microsoft Teams chat. So there's actually, like, if you go to MS Teams online or you download the application, you'll see that, you know, if you go to your Teams tab over here, your tutor will go through this with you, by the way. Please attend your first week's tutes. You will find a group that's been created for you. So that kind of shows you how to do that. This week will be a little bit bumpy because people are enrolling, people are dropping out, people change classes even after we form groups, and your tutor has to kind of sort this stuff out, you know. So just be patient in the first week. The first tutorial is a lot of just trying to get pieces glued together. So thanks for your patience in advance for that. Catherine says, is using VLab the best way to work from home for programming lab questions? I like to use VLab because it's simple. I don't have to set anything up. I don't have to worry about my local machine or anything. If you have a half decent internet connection, VLab's fine. But you can do things locally too. So VLab's absolutely fine for this course. I'd use VLab if I was doing this course. Cool. So major project, we talk more about it in a later lecture. And then help sessions, you all know what help sessions are because you've come from other courses. We run help sessions on Blackboard Collaborate. And that's all on Moodle. Follow the links. They start next week. Some help sessions have multiple tutors on it. Some help sessions have one tutor on it. We use Collaborate for help sessions because of breakout room flexibility, and we like to use Zoom for tutorials because students and tutors give feedback that Zoom tends to be more reliable, and it's a lot more conducive to collaborative meetings. So, you know, that's why we do it. And the exam. We mentioned the exam. It's open book. It'll probably be like a 4-hour exam. We'll confirm later in the course. It's a pretty practical exam. Okay. Now, if you need help throughout the course, you follow a fairly straightforward hierarchy. If you're running into problems with your work, generally the first place to go is your team because you're going to be working with them all term. You're going to be solving problems with them every week. So if you have problems, particularly with your project, you can just go and ask them questions. Go and help each other. It's really good when students help each other. The second place to go is the Ed Forum. You can access the Ed Forum on the sidebar here by going to Forum. This will take you to our Ed Forum. If you already have an account, you can just log in. I don't know what my password is. This is bad. Okay, there you go. So you can go to the Ed Forum here and post questions. If you have questions, you just click on New Thread, you make a post or you ask a question. Generally, question's the best one to pick. And then you just ask something. If you want it to be private, you click on Private. People keep asking in the chat, where can I find my team? I did already explain that. You'll have an MS Teams chat created for you, and you'll also see it in GitLab. But I would strongly recommend that most of you don't worry too much about the team thing until your tutorial this week. Things may be subject to change. You may have to get shuffled around a bit. Someone might fall out of your group. Someone might get added to your group. So I would strongly recommend that you just wait until your tutorial this week. Yeah. If your question is too hard to post on the Ed Forum, please go to help sessions. If help sessions aren't really what you're looking for, then email your tutor or assistant tutor, and then you can also email me at CS1531. Try not to email my personal email address, mainly because I don't know who you are. Some people email me saying, I can't view the lecture, and I'm like, I don't know you, I teach multiple courses. Please help me understand your problems more. So email to CS1531. Yep. Someone asked about VLab and stuff. You can actually use Windows, Mac, Linux for this if you want locally. We have some instructions sitting around in the sidebar here. Generally, all you need in this course is a Unix shell. So Mac OS X, Linux, VLab all run Linux command lines. And you can do most things you want to in the course on that command line. If you are running Windows, and like I run Windows at home, then we have some pretty straightforward instructions just to help you set up Windows subsystem for Linux, which is generally the best way. On Windows, It's very easy, and it's something I'd recommend most of you do on Windows because there's a lot you can do with it. You can pretty much install a Linux shell. In this case, this is a terminal that's running Ubuntu version 20, which is like a type of Linux. So you can just like make directories and do everything you would on the CSE machine. That's super useful to do at home, and I'd really recommend that for people who want to do it at home on Windows. Otherwise, VLab's perfectly fine. And this slide is kind of self-explanatory. Okay, so that pretty much covers everything that's to do with intro to the course.